So once you open any MySQL environment, you need to create the database first. If you observe Oracle we have two parts, SQL and PLSQL. SQL is structured query language, PLSQL is procedural language. In MySQL, we need to create the database first. How do you create the database? Using create database. So look at the thing, create database space database name semicolon. So you get the message database created. Now the database is created. You need to open that. So how to use the database which is created? Use space database name semicolon. Now you get the message database changed. So database is created. Now you entered into the database. The next thing is you need to create the table. To create the table, so we use create table followed by table name. And one important thing is, as you know, table contains some rows and columns. You need to specify the various fields. So here the various fields are ID, username and email. So there are different ways of creating a table. You can create in different ways. So look at the way what we created here. Create table name, ID. You need to specify the type of data. So ID is always integer. An ID cannot be a negative value. So you can use the term unsigned. So what do you mean by not null? See, ID cannot be null. Username cannot be null. Email cannot be null. What do you mean by auto increment? See, if you consider a student table and if we are using the field roll number, if we start with the roll number 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5 up to some 40, 50, 60 depends on the classroom capacity. So if I put auto increment, each and every time we don't need to specify the value of ID. If we start with 1, automatically 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. As you are creating the table for the first time, do not specify auto increment. The second one is username, is of character. So what is varchar, what is char and what is varchar2 we'll be discussing in some other session. Varchar is variable character and the size is 100. But we don't use 100 characters for username. But you can use 100 characters for username if you specify so. And email is also varchar with 100. And what do you mean by primary key? As I told you, primary key is the key which uniquely identifies each and every row in a particular table. The primary key cannot be null. The primary key cannot be repeated, means no two rows can have the same ID. Look at the table creation, close the bracket, semicolon. Now a table is created with 3 fields, ID, username and email. The next step is a database is created. We open the database. We created a table. Now you need to insert the data into the table. So for that we use the command insert. So look at that, insert into table name. Just observe the things clearly. Insert into my table, that is your table name, within bracket username comma email. Values my user comma some email. Have you observed one thing? ID is not specified here. You are not inserting ID. But as I told you earlier, at the time of table creation, do not use auto increment as this is your first session. So you specify ID also here. Let it be some 1, 2 or something like that. Now one row is inserted. So like this you can insert any number of rows. And one thing you observe, at the time of insertion, we don't need to specify the field names within brackets if you are inserting all the fields. Like if you want to give ID, no need of specifying ID, username, email terms within brackets. Directly you can use insert into my table values, open the bracket, 1 comma, my user comma and email ID. I have a table with 3 fields, but I want to insert the data for only 2 fields, and you need to specify those 2 fields within brackets. Is that okay? And what about the double quotations? As it is a character, you need to specify within double quotations, but single quotations are also allowed. If I want to make a change to the data inside the table, whatever the data I inserted, I can do it using update command. So update table name set. What I want to change? I want to change the username. Username is equal to, and where you need to specify the condition where ID is equal to 8. Each and every command in MySQL must end with semicolon. So what if I won't use the where condition? If I don't use the where condition, automatically all the usernames will be changed. If I use where ID is equal to 1, 2 something, only the row which satisfies the particular condition and that concerned username will be changed. Only strings, only the data with strings and dates must be enclosed within single quotations or double quotations. For integer, we don't need to do so. So the next command is to delete the data from a table. Delete from table name, where and some condition. I want to delete the ID with 8. So you can create the table, you can insert the table, you can update the table, and you can delete the data from the table. Now how do you select the data? For that we have a command called select command. Select star from table name where some condition. As I told you, you can do the things even without giving the where condition also. If I write select star from my table semicolon, you get all the data from the table. I repeat, if you type select star from my table semicolon, you get all the data from the table. All the rows will be displayed. If I put where condition, only those rows which satisfies the condition will be displayed on the screen. So I want to check all the databases. How many databases are there in that? You just give show databases semicolon. You get the list of databases. You select any one database. How do you select any database? How do you enter into the database? You enter it using use. And once you entered into any particular database, you want to check how many tables are there. You just type show tables. But don't give directly show tables without entering to the concerned database. Use database semicolon, then give show tables. I have a table. Yeah, I want to check what exactly is inside the table. What is the description of the table? How many fields? What is the data type? And do I have any constraints? Constraints are nothing but conditions. So for that, describe table name semicolon. If you are not in the database, I can give describe database name dot table name semicolon. So you get the description. What is the field type, null, yes or no, and do you have any key, do you have any default values, and some other things. What do you mean by extra here? Extra just like your auto increment and etc. Key refers to the type of key, either it can be primary key or unique key or something like that. We need to create the user first. If I want to do the things in my own user profile, you can create your user, you can create your database, you can create your own table in that, and you can work with that. How do you create the user? So once I create the user, I can work inside that. Create user and check the things identified by some password you have to specify. Username identified by password. So I created the user with some user at some percentage, that is your local host identified by some password. So I have a user and I have a database and I have some table in that. So why different users? The database of one user may not be available to other user. I want to restrict my database to myself. I don't want to be used by others. So in that case, you can add privileges, permissions. See, for that we use grant to give the permission, revoke to take back. So grant, what are the privileges I am granting to the concerned user? Grant, select, insert, update on some particular database name to the user. So that whatever the permissions, whatever the privileges I granted to the user, he can select the data from my database, he can insert the data, he can even update the data also. If I put grant all on, all the permissions I am giving to the concerned user. Look at that star, all the permissions. All the permissions means he can do anything with my database. So all in the sense select, insert, update, delete, create, drop, everything. We didn't even practice drop till now. Drop means drop the table. So at the time of table creation or at the time of database creation, better avoid some reserved words which are in SQL. This is a common notation in any programming language also. Even in programming languages also, a variable cannot be a reserved word. So here also. So if I want to use the reserved words as some column name or table names in SQL, I can use it by putting within the symbols. Can you see that create table and table? Yeah, we call it as a backtick. So I can use like this if I want to create. So why such things? Why don't you use different table names? But even if you want to practice, you can do it like this.